We are back with the SCC playoffs here for the European region. 4 days, 14 sets, 8 teams, and now only 2 left. Decide who's going to be the last team to qualify into the SWC group stage. Will it be the Solar Scarabs? Will it be the Niflheim Wargs? I'm J-Mac. That's Inbound, and we're going to find out as this set continues through. As mentioned, our last set of the weekend here for the European SCC qualifiers here in the playoffs to see, again, which team jumps up to the SWC group stage. With these teams is going to face off against some of the other SPL talent for that final chance to qualify to the world stage. Last year, we had 2 SCC teams make it, and both of them were European teams Inbound. So we'll have to see maybe if the European can kind of hold up that same crown from last year. Maybe we see if any of the NA teams can stand up, or will it be a complete sweep of SPL? Obviously, that's a little bit later down the road. We got to get through this set here to see how the Scarabs and the Wargs can stand off. We can take a look at the bracket here for Group C, which is our final grouping, by taking the 8 teams, condensing them down to the top 2 of their respective groups. Now bringing us our top 4 teams with Mambo, Scarabs, Wargs, and Tanuki. Tanuki fall down 2-1 to Niflheim Wargs, and then a 2-0 for the Solar Scarabs means the Tanuki are out. That was our first set of the day. Last set was Hex Mambo getting a 2-1 and their only single game loss of this event, but didn't matter for them. They were still able to qualify the SWC group stage, and now it's all down to the Wargs and the Scarabs, our final set and our final qualifier match.
And as stated prior, this is a win. Scarabs are coming from a win. Yes, they're the loser side of the bracket, but they're coming from a win. And on the opposite side, what we just saw from the Wargs, they are coming from a loss. And looking at the team rosters, I mean, we've seen these guys. We've seen them all compete. Both of these rosters, bunch of strong players. But players sticking out to me, right now, I need to see more from Davey in this set. I think Davey's last set, he did not look too great. And you compare it to Echrome, coming from his set, Echrome played phenomenal.
And I think really the battle of the junglers as well. Apreel has been a standout performer on that Scarabs, which is crazy to say when you consider some of the talent around him. Deathwalker, Zyrhoes, you expect these guys to be the hard carries, the leaders, the ones, putting forth the charge. But Apreel has been going absolutely insane in his matchups so far. So love what we've seen out of him. And even what we've seen out of WorstTurttle on the Wargs. He was able to keep his team alive for a long time in game number 1, game 2, controlling the pace as well. Just kind of hit a little bit of a stumble in game number 3, just getting outpaced by Johnny, which is something that pretty much every team has fallen victim to.
Yeah.
And that's not just including the SCC. That's also the North American side. Even SPL teams have struggled to kind of keep up with this Hex Mambo style of pace. So now we'll have to see what these 2 teams can do up against each other. I mentioned before, at least in this tournament, we have seen these 2 teams square off. And that was a Wargs win 2-1, but I think you brought it up best. The Scarabs are playing with a hot hand right now. They've won their previous set, and now with the Wargs off a loss, see if they can find their bounce back. Picks and bans for game number 1 of our final set of the EU qualifiers here in playoffs. It'll be the Scarabs taking that first pick spot here against the Niflheim Wargs. We've been seeing a lot of Thoth priority. Inbound. It has been insane how it seemingly the god has come out of nowhere, but maybe by way of the builds that we've been seeing kind of picked up, makes a little bit of sense that we've been seeing kind of this more burst mage style come out of mid.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And we've also seen that one-shot potential from this Thoth. You get that Book of Thoth online, a Mirrodin, a lot of threat on the enemy backliner at all point. The Scarabs looking for this Baba, which makes sense when you think of Zyrhoes as that mid laner. Zyrhoes can play this Thoth. It's banned away. It's not like he can't play it, but he is a very good Baba player. Taking it over the Cuckoo, I'm fine with. But looking on the opposite side, GunTTeRR had a phenomenal game 2 on this Cuckoo, and even game 1 against the Mambo, he played very well on the Cuckoo, so I like these first 2 picks by both sides.
I'm honestly surprised we didn't see a Poseidon lock-in for the Solar Scarabs here yet. Still an opportunity, but at the moment it's Ishtar locked in, Sobek being hovered for the Scarabs, and we will not see the Poseidon right away. So now an option if the Niflheim Wargs want to grab that for their solo laner. Make sure to at least to give your solo an option, Panvich, to have a little bit of an easy time over there in that solo lane. It will go his way. So now the option is, what does Deathwalker go up against that? Because the Puch is already banned away. You grab the Poseidon. I mean, Raijin's technically still on the table. Agni as well, as we've been seeing there. Where would you like to maybe see Deathwalker try and go towards if those 2 get taken away from him?
I mean, he's also got the disco that he's played that looks really good also. I'm not too worried about Deathwalker's pick. He kind of has shown that he'll play almost any mage over there that he can. I think the worry, and Yemoja actually making it through all the top P's and B's and making it all the way to this 4th pick on the Warg side. And it doesn't really match that same style that the Horus had in the last game, but it's still a phenomenal pick. And then looking at the Scarabs, seems like Deathwalker's going for that Baron Samedi versus Baron Samedi versus Poseidon matchup, which is a tough matchup for Poseidon. Free beads pulls over there. You can ult the Kraken, so Deathwalker pulling some bags out of his
some tricks out of his hat. Or
tricks
out of the bag.
bag. Tricks out of his hat. Yeah, tricks out of his hat. We'll take that one.
Either one works. Then a Nemesis last for Niflheim Wargs. I actually want to go back to this Yemoja for a moment, because it feels like, compared to the SPL, at least from what we've seen at the ESCC, it was only a 72% pick ban rate on this god. When you look over at SPL, that god's like 94, 95, if not even some of the weekends, 100% pick ban. You think that there's maybe a reason why we don't see as much Yemoja prioritization from these teams?
I would just assume it has to come down to Yemoja does a few things very, very well. Obviously, she team fights very well. She has a pretty solid laning phase, but that middle portion of the game is a little funky unless you get a lead. And we've seen a lot of Horus from Predss. We've seen a lot of Sobek, which gives you that really strong early game and mid game. So I think it just has to do with, she just has some weaknesses that can be exploited, and it's not easy really to play her.
Well, one spot left to qualify up to the SWC group stage, but it all starts here in game number 1. Solar Scarabs versus Niflheim Wargs. We'll throw it over to game 1 with our casters.
Thank you so much, Desk. You got Dimes, you got Trelly, and we are rounding out this entire weekend of competition. It's been a fun one to watch, and we're seeing a rematch of two teams that we saw face up against each other a little bit early on in this EU side of things. And I want to highlight something here, Trelly, before we start talking about comps.
Oh, please do.
And some things in game. I'm about to, if you just hang on for 1 second.
I certainly will.
The Wargs did take their first matchup against the Solar Scarabs 2-1. But the one thing I want to highlight is that the first game that the Solar Scarabs did take off of the Wargs was a 47-minute slaughter. I mean, it was a hard-fought victory for the Solar Scarabs.
And if that's what you want to highlight, getting first-blooded, not a great look. Echrome finds it. Predss goes in for the invade. You get very slowed when you walk past the first half of the map, Dimes, when you're doing it so early. It's a thing called Invader's Curse, and Predss learned that the hard way, even using the beads to try and get out. That's a great start for the duo lane, but to your point, yeah, these games have been going a bit longer, so you got to look towards late game hyper carry potential. I'm seeing a Mercury, I'm seeing an Ishtar with First Blood. I'm leaning a little bit towards the Scarabs already.
And then, of course, Zyrhoes on this Baba Yaga. We saw Zyrhoes slam this pick throughout the entire EU SCC stages, both stage 1 and stage 2 of competition. Baba Yaga has been a go-to for Zyrhoes, relevant through all stages of the game. And with a first blood pickup here for the Solar Scarabs, especially without Apreel even glancing at the duo lane, do you expect that these junglers might place their influence elsewhere or continue to hover around this left-hand side?
I would say, you know, what Apreel's doing now, first of all, you got duo pressure. There's no way you're giving up this shield buff, right? That's going to go your way essentially for free. We think WorstTurttle knows that as well. He's going to head over to right. If Apreel wants to continue slamming the duo lane, that, you know, that's up to interpretation. But at the very least, this shield camp on rotation should be over here. The second Rage gets stacked up, you can send the ultimate right down left lane. It's just, you got the beads off of Predss, right? You didn't necessarily get the beads off of Davy. This Hachiman is a lot safer, so we'll just have to see. I assume Yemoja should be getting focused at least one more time before those beads go down. But Predss has been playing very safe. Actually takes the Riptide already at level 2 just to make sure. Hey, I got my get out of jail free card if I'm ever in trouble.
Bounced a little bit off the mark there with the pluck. And you know Predss got a little bit of heat in comms for that. For that pre-level 1. It's like, bro, really? You're going to die there? All right, I'll take the Riptide. Play a little safer. We'll claw back. No big deal. The Silence is playing up here. I do want to flip the script here. We're talking about Apreel. Let's chat about WorstTurttle on this Nemesis. I mean, very first item tells me might be looking toward a more attack speed style build for the Nemesis, as both junglers are heading over to the solo lane side. Is this Nemesis a counter pick for something that the Solar Scarabs grabbed themselves, or what's the thought process there, as there's a scrap here in solo over the blue buff?
Yeah, I think that Nem is one of those gods that, as WorstTurttle, does actually get the steal. It does well into Mercury, you know, if you're able to eat some crits.
Ooh.
Deathwalker, did you not get the memo? There's a Nemesis behind you.
That's a tough spot for an immobile character like a Baron Samedi. Deathwalker still pretty healthy here. That's 1 dash, 2 dash, 1 more auto attack, and Panvich is going to snatch that one away from the jungler of the Niflheim Wargs with an interesting step up there from Deathwalker capitalized.
Yeah, that's the way I'd phrase it as well. It's as if he didn't realize that WorstTurttle was behind, or maybe thought he was a little bit safer with that Aegis, but did not land the heal, didn't get enough movement speed, and you're going to get punished for it. So now that makes things interesting, because remember, blue buff gets stolen, now Deathwalker gets killed with Aegis being down. You've got two lanes that are clearly ahead on the left and the right side of the map on different teams. So yeah, if I'm apreel, I'm probably spending more time on the left. You do want to help Deathwalker get his blue buff, but besides that, looking towards ganks is not going to be easy, because fed Poseidon in this case, you just beads bead special delivery, drop the Kraken, and you can usually trade at the very least for a kill there. So not the most ideal situation for apreel to try and gank that side of the map, whereas the left, as we've already said, could be looking decent. Level 5 is hit, actually, before Silence is able to even grab it, so Predss definitely not feeling the weight of that first blood too much. But already, both junglers shown that they want to try and get active, but it's the Wargs who make out a little bit better with that trade.
Now, when we're looking at these comps in totality, you mentioned that there's some late game potential in the Ishtar and the Mercury. I mean, same thing goes for the Niflheim Wargs, though. It's not like, Panvich is going to be a while before he's ready to head out of that solo lane. WorstTurttle wants to get a couple items online as well. Do you anticipate that objectives are going to be mostly ignored here for the early goings?
Yeah, that's usually the case, unless GunTTeRR has this Kukulkan, which is going to be the greatest confirmation on the map at any moment in the game, just because of the way that the Cuckoos are building at the moment. And Zyrhoes forced into the ultimate shouldn't be under too much trouble here. Does get the beads down though, and oh no! Oh man, that's slow. I really thought Spirit of the Nine Winds might have connect there. Zyrhoes didn't go into the house, didn't feel it was necessary, but almost regretted it.
Yeah, that's one of those things where if you don't use ultimates, don't use relics, you look like a genius. Like you can perfectly calculate how much damage you're going to take. But then if you do die, you just look ridiculous and selfish. Luckily, Zyrhoes on the better side of that, as the Solar Scarabs are going to confirm this next spawn of their blue buff. apreel charging the ultimate, as all Mercury players are apt to do, just constantly nonstop. And it was interesting in that engagement onto Zyrhoes, we saw a rotation from Panvich out of the solo lane. I mean, that was at maybe pre-5 minutes, which has not been the MO for solo laners recently.
Yeah, I guess that's the benefit of the Poseidon, right? If you're maxing that second ability, that trident can zoom you across the map very quickly. You're not going to miss too much farm. And at the end of the day, if you're not invading the blue buff, which the Niflheim Wargs didn't even attempt to do, you're not going to miss too many opportunities there, because Poseidon already clears the wave so quickly. So, seemed to be the call. Force the beads off of Zyrhoes, and now it could be a target. There's not too many members on the Wargs that really benefit from the beads being down, though, right? Like WorstTurttle, he's just trying to build up movement speed. He's got the Atalanta's bow. I think an Erendite maybe in the future. But the beads being down, Zyrhoes should be relatively safe as long as he stays underneath that tower with home sweet home. I still think the side lanes is where these junglers should be looking. And because apreel doesn't have any stacks on that rage, let me fire out a few ultimates.
Charlie, that itemization has really leveled out when literally everyone on the map has built the exact same things except for the junglers that are playing two different play styles now. I mean, perfect parity in solo, the duo lane, the mid lane. Optimization has clearly been found here by these players.
Yeah, they have mirrored builds essentially of some tier 1s coming through because everyone's backing at around the same time. So that's, tying into your point earlier about how objectives are going to be largely ignored just because everyone's essentially even. It's going to be, hey, the wards realize someone backed on a ward and they've got time to go for an easy blow up on the Gold Fury, or vice versa. But still, burst has to come into the conversation, and if GunTTeRR is healthy with beads up, you're not pulling any objective with him around. It's very hard to CC a Cuckoo, even with the range of Spirit of the Nine Winds. Even if you get a good stun, he can still send it out from halfway across the Gold Fury pit. So, spending more time looking for ganks. We do see WorstTurttle hovering on the left side of the map, but looks like he's just waiting to see if anyone will, reveal themselves, and that's not going to be the case. There was plenty of vision from the Scarabs to check that one out.
I want to highlight the macro play here from the Niflheim Wargs. All weekend long, we've seen two teams really extend out from the rest of the pack. The Wargs and, of course, the Hex Mambo have demonstrated their handle on macro play. Niflheim Wargs dropped a 500 gold bounty with that first blood, have already made it back up, and actually have climbed into a really tiny gold lead of their own to the tune of about 14. But a gold lead nonetheless. They've recovered from that initial spill. Same thing goes for XP. Predss found the first death of the game, is now even in levels. Sure, Echrome has a little bit of a lead there in the duo lane, but around the rest of the map, as people are ticking to parity. There's a slight XP lead as well for the Niflheim Wargs.
Ooh, Rivers Rebuke just off the mark there. Echrome able to run away. Does not even have to relic. And actually, iSilenced goes back, gets the full Phantom Shell. That's a lot of gold to, put into your relics this early on. But fearing, hey, the only way we lose a fight is if one of these 4 characters that can get caught in the cage, which is pretty much everyone except for Zyrhoes, gets caught. We need that Phantom Shell immediately. So we'll have to see if that ends up being worth it. If no one gets caught in the Rivers Rebuke, then you kind of just wasted your gold. But rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. That seems to be the mindset here for the Solar Scarabs. I imagine Pyromancer is a lot easier to pull at this point in the game. It's not available just yet, but it's a lot less risk, right? Gold Fury is still too impactful, so just going to be farming constantly and making sure they've got their wards down. And as far as ward vision goes, the Solar Scarabs have the left side of the map lit up like a Christmas tree, man. So many blue wards. Just making sure. And if WorstTurttle is even in the vicinity, the duo lane's going to know about it.
Apreel's heal just to help out Deathwalker, maybe steal a little XP as well. And Trells, I'm scratching my head here. I mean, you already brought it up. GunTTeRR's got the best secure on the map by far.
Right.
Pyromancer is available as well on the map, Gold Fury. Well, you know who else has really incredible secure? Panvich with this Kraken. So between the dragon and the giant sea monster, I mean, the Solar Scarabs, what is their game plan even? Like, is it straight up we can't even risk an objective unless multiple members of the Niflheim Wargs are taken off the map first? Or you have to coin flip it, right?
Well, the benefit of, the Poseidon in this case is he's going to build it a little bit tankier. So you don't have to worry too much about the Kraken. Runic Bombs should take care of that. But it's the combination of both, right? Kraken into Spirit of the Nine Winds. Now it's a coin flip. Now you're looking a little bit sketchy. So you got to try and pull beads. If beads are down, you wait for Panvich or GunTTRR to walk up. You get a pluck, you get a special delivery, you just try and throw them back in and go for the kill, or bait out that ultimate early. I imagine the Solar Scarabs are going to take the let's not pull objectives until we have, guaranteed secure approach, because that seems to be much safer in this situation, especially when we're bouncing on a knife's edge when it comes to, gold in favor of whichever team. So objectives are going to be largely ignored until something big happens. Maybe it's an ultimate from apreel that just opens the fight wide open, or a Kraken miss, something like that, where the Solar Scarabs or the Wargs feel, oh, we've got a big opening here. Maybe we can go for and pull and just see how this fight goes through.
The only tough consequence here for the Solar Scarabs, at least, for not getting active around the map, is apreel isn't going to be able to stack this rage up as quickly as he would like. Sure, Mercury's a late game god. You're going to want to build a ton of crit anyway. But that little extra crit, especially in some of these early team fights and objective engagements, may pay dividends here. So far, it's just the base item. Sonic Boom comes out on a Panvich, who gets straight up deleted, able to drop the Kraken, but can't quite 100-0 apreel just yet. WorstTurttle in, looking for a return kill, trying to get something done on the back end. Each out of apreel is going to immune the damage. Deathwalker throwing out a couple shots as well, and WorstTurttle is turned away. 2-1, the Solar Scarabs lead in the kill column with a nice gank down the map from apreel.
That's interesting because Panvich saw apreel on that blue buff, right? Stepped on a ward, did the blue buff, and then immediately goes underneath. So Panvich says, oh, I better get out of here. Issue was that Deathwalker hits Wrap It Up, hits the coffin, gets the beats down early, and at that point, it doesn't matter how much damage your Kraken has, doesn't matter that you can stop the special delivery with the Whirlpool, it's just too much CC. You've already used your one avenue of CC immunity in the beads, and plenty of lockdown comes through. Sure, WorstTurttle comes in for the counter gank and gets an Aegis down, but it's just not the same, and now Solar Scarabs have a way to try and look towards left lane, maybe continue ganking right. I mean, the map is a little bit more open towards them at this point. Only issue is that Deathwalker can't really rotate out of lane quickly. This Baron is going to take a while, all right? If you see him over and right, he's not going to be over on the left side of the map for at least 60 seconds, something like that. Whereas, as you can see, Panvich already making his way over, and he can do so quickly.
Either one of these squads really happy giving up the beacon here. Predss throws out the rivers. GunTTRR throwing out the dragon. Neither ultimate finds a home, as it's 5 members of the Niflheim Wargs here committing all of their resources onto this beacon. Early rotations from both side lanes. And the Niflheim Wargs, I mean, is this kind of commitment to a beacon really worth it at 12, 13 minutes in the game?
Well, it depends what the Scarabs get in the meantime, right? Deathwalker pushes a wave under. He's looking to invade back camps, but it's not as if that much farm is on the table. I do think grouping up there is not a terrible call because that Rivers Rebuke was close, right? If you actually catch Silenced in and he was in his ultimate, you're not popping that Phantom Shell. You are getting hit by the Dragon, and you're probably going down. But once again, Silence barely sneaks out. These rivers have been close, but close is not enough. You need to make sure you got them in the middle, or at the very least can riptide them back in, which just did not happen. So I do think that was probably better for the Scarabs once Deathwalker gets a little bit more farm, but yeah, once they grab that Pyro, ends up being in their favor.
Pyro not even looked at there by the Niflheim Wargs. No wards available as Echrome's going to drop to the rotation here from WorstTurttle. Davey picks up the final hit, and the Niflheim Wargs once again even it up 2-2 in the kill count. You got a couple kills on both of your side lanes now. iDavy's kill certainly the more impactful one. Predss yoinked back in, actually yoinked out of the potion thrown out there by Zyrhoes. GunTTERR's made the rotation as well. It's going to be a 4v3 on this left-hand side around the Gold Fury as all teams disperse here for the moment. And Gold certainly in the lead here now from Solar Scarabs after grabbing that Pyromancer, but the main objective on the map on this left-hand side, the Gold Fury, has not been touched by either one of these squads.
Yeah, I don't hate that call from the Scarabs. They might have been able to chase Predss a little bit further if apreel wanted to go for the ultimate, but remember, Echrome had just got ganked. He was dead. You're at the best fighting in a 3v4 where Predss is a little bit weak. I think it's better that you just sit back, farm, and see what you can get done when the whole team is able to group up together. This Mercury does have one stack on the Rage, and already second item Deathbringer, so these crits are going to be ringing true. It's just you got to look towards those squishier targets. Anyone with Fizdie, as Predss already has that Spectral Armor, they're not going to care about it too much. You really want to look towards, GunTTERR or Davey. That's who you're going to be hitting as hard as possible. So that's where apreel's probably going to look to send out some of those ultimates. Still a relatively slow-paced early game. There's a lot on the line here, Dimes. When your ticket to try and fight for your spot at Worlds is at the end of a best of 3, I can see why there's only 4 kills in 15 minutes, right? They're playing as careful as possible.
Especially the Solar Scarabs. I mean, we've highlighted it both on the desk and here in the cast. Scarabs have already taken a spill to the Wargs, right? And sure, you've learned, you've played much more SMITE as the Niflheim Wargs, grouping as 5, just delete the Gold Fury, throws in an ultimate just for fun there. The Niflheim Wargs sneak away an objective from the Solar Scarabs. So even objectives, Trelly, have been traded so far even. I mean, this is, one team finds a slight advantage, a small opening, they punch. The other team responds in kind, finds a kill on the other side of the map or an objective of their own. And this is calculated, concise SMITE. As apreel blinks in, looking onto Panvich, uses the Kraken preemptively to create space, immediately pulled back in there by the combination of Silenced and Mercury. And Panvich finds the grayscale for the second time here in this game.
Yeah, there was no way he was ever making it out there. A 4-man group up. Unfortunately, the Niflheim Wargs were none the wiser. I mean, WorstTurttle knew there was some people around, but didn't know it was 4 members of the Scarabs grouped up around that blue buff. So, at the very least, something goes through, but the Wargs are always getting something done. They went for a little bit of a gank onto Echrome, pulled the Aegis, pulled the beads, and the tier 1 tower over on left. So, it was a trade of towers and a pick onto Panvich, but Echrome's relics are looking a little bit worse for wear. That's the benefit of the Cuckoo, though. I think between the Scarabs and the Wargs are much more likely to just go for a 50-50 on an objective like that. Call it a 50-50, but more likely, they knew no one was in range, right? They're like, wait, everyone back, let's just go. We can blow it up immediately. Silence was there. He sort of watched it go down, but when it's between the 180 damage that Sickening Strike's going to do and the Spirit of the 9 Winds that does, I think, 981, something like that, yeah, you're going to be giving that one to GunTTERR every single time.
You know what I'm really looking forward to is the Nemesis ultimate Kukulkan combination, right? You strip away some prots, throw out the Spirit of the 9 Winds, all of a sudden someone just doesn't exist on the map anymore, or even paired up with a Kraken, maybe a couple auto attacks. I think this Nemesis, as we get a little bit deeper in this game, is going to come much more online than the 002 would say otherwise.
I think you're right. It's just, when are these ults going to be sent out, right? That's the thing. It hasn't been too much scrapping. It's been, let's drop 4 ults onto Panvich, or we're just fighting towards objectives, not really looking to group up. There hasn't been a true team fight yet, so I'm just looking towards apreel, right? This man is in the hyperbolic time chamber, just trying to train as much as possible. 2 stacks on the Rage, and here we go.
Panvich, once again, the target here, drops the Kraken, only finds Silence. Life of the party connects on, guess who? The Poseidon, who's going to go down to apreel, finds another rage stack. Some nice crits there in the meantime, and Panvich has just been on the receiving end of punishment here from the Solar Scarabs. Does open the door for the Niflheim Wargs to get this Pyromancer going. Gonna snatch it away. If you lose your solo laner, might as well get a consolation prize as Predss goes down as well. That's not fantastic calculus for the Niflheim Wargs. Solar Scarabs not quite done with this one, charging forward. Zyrhoes leading the fray here, throwing out some damage. Solar Scarabs don't have much more to capitalize on. I mean, the Niflheim Wargs lose 2, but grab an objective. What's that math looking like, Trelly?
They better do far. Yeah, I was about to say, I'm surprised it took him
Holy
this long.
smokes.
Deathwalker once again in no man's land, but he's got the Aegis this time around. Is that enough to stall his life? Yes, but he's leading the team over towards Fire Giant. They don't even care, though, the Wargs. They didn't quite realize it, and the rest of the Scarabs get FG on 4. That's a worthwhile trade. One that didn't necessarily need to happen, but Deathwalker thought he was a bit tankier than he really was.
I mean, at that point, Deathwalker's just playing like Space Creator, right? Like, look at me, big red signs, don't go over there towards Fire Giant. Sure, they get Deathwalker. The rest of the 4 Solar Scarabs that remain on the battleground grab Fire Giant. And my question here, Trelly, is what are you going to do with it, right? You got a Fury coming back online. You've got a tier 1 tower still needs to be taken on the left-hand side. But is it too early to start pushing tier 2s?
You know, I don't think so. It's just because the Solar Scarabs... you know, once again, that fight starts with them dropping 4 ults onto Panvich. That's exactly what happens. Then, Predss is a little bit too far, so he gets caught out a little bit later. And then 2 members down, you've got a Merc with this much crit. You better be pulling FG. The Wargs are in a position where they've got great wave clear, and that is something that is very valuable when it's this early on and you look towards silence protections. It's like, oh, he's got Thebes and Spectral. He's going to be able to tank the Phoenix up a bit, or the tier 2 tower up a bit, but that damage starts to add up. It evolves every single time you get hit. So just dropping a tornado and getting the minions out slows down the siege so much that I wouldn't be surprised if the Scarabs are just looking to group up and sort of split the map up. And that's exactly what the Wargs are doing as well. Davey, not over and left. He knows that's the first place the Scarabs are going to go. He was pushing right lane for a bit. Once that tower's gone, there's no reason to be there. So now we see all of the Wargs group up towards the tier 2. And I think this is the correct call. They are able to defend as long as no one's getting plucked, as long as no one's getting grabbed by Mercury or caught out by the River's Rebuke.
Ooh. But a nice Phantom Shell in return gets apreel out of danger. That's a long cooldown, though. It's going to be down for 120 seconds. The River's Rebuke going to be up sooner than that. Solar Scarabs are going to have to watch out for Predss here on this Yemoja, as they're not quite done on this left-hand side, even though the Yemoja ultimate down, Shell is down as well. You see an opportunity to keep things rolling as Echrome, iSilenced, and Zyrhoes. The trio trying to push down a tier 2 tower here on the duo lane side. Apreel and Deathwalker teaming up in the middle lane to grab a tier 2 of their own. And the first Phoenix of the game has been exposed here by the Solar Scarabs.
Yeah, I like this play a little bit better. Don't go for the true 5v5 under a tower with a Cuckoo. Just start splitting up the map. WorstTurttle headed to right. No one was there. Deathwalker and Apreel say, hey, free tier 2. All the while, the Scarabs do get the tier 2 and left extremely low. Doesn't count just yet as it does go down. That'll be even more gold in their pocket. So now the Scarabs get to back up. Remember, this is still a 20-minute Fire Giant. It's not as if breaking the base is that guaranteed. They should be able to go back, spend a little bit of that gold, upgrade some of these starter items. That's what I would imagine a lot of this golden hand is going to go to, because you got level 20 for Apreel, you got level 20 for Zyrhoes, and got to imagine Deathwalker and Echrome are right on that precipice as well. So a little bit more gold to buff them up for the next Fire Giant fight. And now we're talking about you could be breaking the base, because one Runic Bomb at least should be going to the Scarabs as long as they're in position to grab this Pyro on respawn.
Scarabs have plenty of damage online. Maybe not enough to get a final push if they were to grab that Fire Giant, but certainly enough to knock down at least a couple Firebirds. And the Niflheim Wargs, it's not like they're 10k down at 20 minutes, right? It's a 4,000-ish gold lead. It hasn't spiraled out of control. Like you mentioned, levels are becoming less important as everyone on the map's getting closer or hitting level 20. Pyromancer, between Apreel, iSilenced, and Zyrhoes, objectives are going to melt as that Pyromancer has disappeared, and put a little more gold, a little more XP, a little more map control on the side of the Solar Scarabs. It's not like the Niflheim Wargs are in an impossible situation here. One good team fight, one good Spirit of the Nine wins ultimate from GunTTeRR, and all of a sudden this game looks completely different.
I think that is the big difference maker, though. And look, the Solar Scarabs are prepared for that Spirit of the Nine wins. Take a look at their relic. You'll find something in common. all 5 have Aegis. All 5 members of the Solar Scarab said, wait a second, those Krakens and those Spear of the Nine Winds are going to hurt. Let's just make sure we've got those relics in the back pocket, which they do. So GunTTeRR might have to hit 2 good Spear of the Nine Winds to guarantee a fight, but at the very least, steal towards the Fire Giant is certainly a possibility, and Predss has a Runic Bomb if GunTTeRR can't close gap and get a little bit closer. On the other hand, though, you got to weigh your options. This is not an enhanced Fire Giant. Your defense is still solid. You've got double mage for wave clear. It's not as if you have to throw the game to defend this Fire Giant. If the fight's not looking good, retreating is still an option. The Niflheim Wargs are going to have to weigh those options as this Fire Giant spawns in. And it's all Scarabs. They're just grouped up. They've got the ward coverage. They're wanting to see who's going to walk forward. And at the moment, it was just WorstTurttle clearing out minions in mid.
I mean, there's no way the Wargs just let this one go and watch on for nothing. There's going to be a step forward here if the Solar Scarabs try to engage on the Fire Giant that has popped up back on the map. Like you said, though, this is not an end call. This is not the end of the game if the Niflheim Wargs don't love this fight. Pred's taking a little bit of damage to kick things off here from Zyrhoes, who, I mean, Baba Yaga. It's a Baba Yaga. We know exactly what can be done there with a couple fully stacked items. Got a Charon's coin, penetration on the back end. Zyrhoes is looking pretty dangerous here. And something I'm curious about as the Wargs get things going on the Fire Giant. Pred's taking a ton of damage. Gets plucked back in. Life of the party connects onto the support Deathwalker. Immuning out the Kraken. River's Rebuke has been put out. iDavy putting in work. Meanwhile, in the backline, taking out iSilenced. Both supports have been traded out as a 4v4. iDavy,
oh my god, he's gone!
In a death as apreel has a one-punch man-like situation onto the ADC. WorstTurttle now on the receiving end of some of those shots from apreel as well, who escapes without 20 HP to his name. A 2v1 Niflheim Wargs on the back foot here as apreel's build is really coming to fruition.
My god, I mean, that was, if that crit onto WorstTurttle, this might have been an end call. Like, that was definitely going to be a 4v2 underneath the Phoenix, but that was just ridiculous. I think Panvich played correctly. You beads and you run away. You're trying to close gap, or sorry, Davey rather. You beads and you run away. Didn't matter. It was just Sonic Boom punch dead. That was what happened. Davey just gets absolutely deleted. That's the benefit of the fully stacked Rage, and I think the Solar Scarabs played that flawlessly. You just sent Echrome and apreel to do Fire Giant. They can do it themselves. You don't need a tank. You don't need the rest of the team. And then Zyrhoes, Deathwalker, and Silence step forward and say, who's walking up? We have so much CC. Wrap it up into Pluck, into just so much damage from Zyrhoes. Predss took the bait. He walked forward. The beads were down immediately. Didn't matter. You're still getting sucked back in with life of the party. Unfortunately, Silence goes down because sometimes when you're Sobek, you got to be that sacrificial lamb to get the fight started. You're going to pluck in, and you're going to get traded. But hey, the Scarabs are okay with that in this instance. Titans are going to be running down right lane here shortly, which means the Scarabs will have an extra help when trying to break the base of the Niflheim Wargs. And they're just going to have to retreat at this point. Yeah, you push up the Titan right lane, the tier 2, who cares? That Phoenix is really the target.
Titans have been unleashed as 4 members of the Solar Scarabs are pushing it down this right-hand side. Apreel's joining the rest of the squad as well. It's going to be a 5v5 sooner rather than later. Tier 2 is bye-bye, gone. Oh, still standing. One more shot from Echrome as I play the fool here. I mean, I feel like I just spoke that into existence there. This wave's going to do it, Trelly. This wave is going to make me look a little bit better.
Sure?
Tower's going to go down 100%. Yeah, I would put money on it. Is that legal? Can
no, you definitely can't, but right. you would. You didn't say I have.
No. I have. There is a void in the market, though. Anyways, Echrome putting the finishing touches on the tower on the right-hand side here as the Firebird's been exposed. And now only 3 Phoenixes keeping the Niflheim Wargs in this game. I mean, all objectives are down. Waves are pushing in. More importantly, you got a Titan pushing in on the right-hand side here for the Solar Scarabs, who are just buying a little time for that major siege engine to join the rest of the squad here. WorstTurttle and apreel 1v1ing. apreel on the back end of that. River's Rebuke has been dropped.
Predss,
that's
are you
a
good?
Perfect ultimate there from Predss, who gets dropped down low. In the meantime, the Dragon only connects with 1, but Deathwalker finds the target there via the Kraken GunTTeRR with the finishing touches onto the solo laner. WorstTurtle's come in to do some work. Those swords coming out from Echrome, stopping WorstTurttle in his tracks. The Solar Scarabs, They don't grab the Phoenix, they lose one, and now they are on the retreat.
Wow, I am baffled at that seat. I mean, Predss almost dies just from the get-go, but finds a beautiful ultimate that split the fight. Phoenix can't be touched. The Titan gets burned through, and Deathwalker dies with Aegis up. I mean, it was a beautiful Kraken timed right at the tail end of life of the party. Maybe didn't have enough time to. But taking a lot of damage there means that the Solar Scarabs can't get the Phoenix. They have to retreat, and as I said previously, it's not enhanced, right? That was a regular Fire Giant, so the Phoenix just doesn't die as quickly as you might like. One Runic Bomb went down, but I believe Apreel held on to his, so did not drop the entirety of their arsenal to try and get that right side bird. But at the very least feels a little bad. The Niflheim Wargs, though, only down about 10,000 gold. They have time to try and farm back up before an EFG fight is underway, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to split up, look towards left, get as many buffs as possible. We talked about, starter items. Those are all completed at this point. Only level 20 for Predss, and everyone else has reached that end game point. But it's going to be still a toss-up. As far as I'm concerned, the builds are not so far out of whack that the Niflheim Wargs can't step forward, right? It's just these 6 items. Deathbringer for Davy. Panvich is trying to get some attack speed. GunTTeRR wants the Staff of Mirrodin. And, of course, Predss still has a recipe, but it's not like Silence doesn't as well. These builds are essentially mirrored at this point. It's very close to an even fight. It's just going to be, do the Solar Scarabs want to try and burn this quickly? They're going to slow it down. Will the Wargs get plucked again? There's just so many variables.
I mean, if you look at the Niflheim Wargs slash lines, 3 deaths each for Panvich and Predss. That's where the majority of the aggression from the Scarabs has been focused. And these teamfights look a lot different. I'm sure Panvich gets picked early on, not really teamfights, but these teamfights look a lot different if Predss survives that initial engagement. Might be an adjustment here from the Niflheim Wargs, as apreel has got to be the target. I mean, 4-0, we saw the damage that those huge crit basics were putting out. You maybe cripple them with the Whirlpool or find some hard CC. And we got to see some of these ultimates from GunTTeRR finding home in a few members of the Solar Scarabs.
That would be ideal so far. Just going to be a little bit of a poke fest. Oh my gosh, GunTTeRR, half health just from potions over the wall. Zyrhoes walks up, throws a potion, backs up, and is just fishing for HP as the crits start raining true. Now EFG started up, and Deathwalker's the target.
Deathwalker's in a tough spot here. The target of several ultimates. The Solar Scarabs grabbed the Fire Giant. It might have ticked over to Enhance. In fact, it did. As Predss is driven out of the fray, Zyrhoes finds one. apreel follows up with another. GunTTeRR to fall as well. It's just a matter of time before Deathwalker finishes him off, wraps him right up. iDavy forced to retreat as well. Hiding behind the speed buff. apreel misses Davy, who's able to successfully escape. But I don't know if it really matters here, Trelly, as Panvich and Davy are going to have to put on a miracle defense against 5 members of the Solar Scarabs with Enhanced Fire Giant wrapped around their waist. Sure, they're a little low in HP, but guess what? The Niflheim Wargs are a little bit low in personnel. 5 members of the Solar Scarabs, accompanied by an entire minion wave here, pressing into the base of the Niflheim Wargs. Davy forced back into the fountain. The Titan is falling, and it is falling quickly. Davy finds one. Panvich trying to buy time, and the Solar Scarabs repeating history and snagging game number 1 from the Niflheim Wargs.
All right, I mean, apreel looked fantastic that game, 5-0-2, but my man, a Mercury ulted into the wall, messed up, just says, oh man, I still gotta chase him down, blinks to chase him down, and then Davy backs in the speed buff. Unfortunate for the Niflheim Wargs. The fight, still 10,000, I believe 11,000 gold. That EFG fight was never going to be easy. I believe Spirit of the Nine wins. It was either like this close to hitting Fire Giant or left it at 1 HP. Either way, it didn't seem like the actual confirmation of EFG was the issue. It was the fight after the fact, right? A 5v2. Just about any team is going to be ending at 31 plus minutes. So the Solar Scarabs, they buy their time well. They didn't overcommit with their regular Fire Giants. They didn't attempt Phoenix Sieges and just get wiped. They slowed it down and they waited until they had the guaranteed win, which is what you got to do when so much is on the line.
Well, Trelly, as we know, the last meeting between these two squads went all 3, and the Solar Scarabs in that match took game number 1 as well. See if the Niflheim Wargs can fight back into a game number 2 victory right after this.
Been hitting my soul, been on the ropes, I'm ready to grow, so get to know me. Keep your head up, I want you to grow with me. See this gold on me, want you to glow with me. Yeah, alright, okay. We get it. No contest. Wait, see this gold on me, serve, want nigga. You to glow with me. The world been dying, days is numbered, check the climate, I'm sick of it. They had brain scheme to get the riches quick. I play the long game with serene scene and a whip that's quick. From the back room to the hearts, I'm in the thick of it. I grind too hard for y'all not to see me a star. Bitch, I'm raising a bar like they really pay me to talk. My life been in shambles, but I got handles. I'm finishing at the rim. I remind you time and again that I'm really him. Oh, you ain't know? This not just for the show, but bet you entertain. Anybody not for me is below me. Blow me, you in the way. I live my dreams, I got it locked. The master key been on me. Back in the field, running audibles with the team. Everything I got out the mother, told my truth. I shake that fake shit, they praise you, then minimize you behind you. Just know I notice you. Stay woke, no joke, it really be the ones you closest to. Had to stop sleeping on myself like I ain't know the truth. Oh, this to me like it's really nobody code is this. And if you disagree, then you jaws and your claim get audited. Who you know do the beating and talking and write the harmonies. I'm really convinced there's nobody out here going hard as me. Wish well the dog that claimed belief in me so he could use me. Look at me now, you chose your route, I know you sick to see it. You talk a lot, all that flop, but that's not harming us. Capping your status, we back, ain't nobody raws us. To the ones that held me down for the count, look at what growth will do. I'm the kid from the cul-de-sac, feeling double sex with loot they pay to play my shit back. Ain't no way I'm going back until I'm fossil fuel to the flame, just like I'm supposed to do. Enough of the code switching, been hitting my soul, been on the ropes, I'm ready to grow, so get to know me. Keep your head up, I want you to grow with me. See this gold on me, want you to glow with me. Been hitting my soul, been on the ropes, I'm ready to grow, so get to know me. Keep your head up, I want you to grow with me. See this gold on me, want you to glow with me. I've been on a job, trying to take it far. I need that ROI, I done paid the cost. I'm all in on me, little baby, she agrees, she really been here through the fall. She the only thing I need. I wanna be free, I know that they want me for my ideas so they can line their pockets. Don't hit me to tell me that you give a fuck about me. You don't even know nothing about me, trying to force me on your timeline. You know you need to stop it, I live for more than attention. Might not be your trending topic, put my worth in analytics. I admit that took a toll, I got addicted to scrolling. We know well that get toxic, I got caught comparing me to people I don't even know. They say it's lonely at the top, well maybe then I'll focus on things that's more important and let whoever think whatever and just keep it moving. These niggas won't work on themselves, they'd rather see you losing. You'll never see me losing. Enough of the code switching, been hitting my soul, been on the ropes, I'm ready to grow, so get to know me. Keep your head up, I want you to grow with me. See this gold on me. Want you to grow with me. Want you to grow with me. Back in it, baby, just stay in the town. I'm on the edge, I ain't coming down. I get too high, I'm afraid of the ground. I'm young and I'm paid to play with these sounds. Ignoring the call, she shutting that gown. Started at the top and I'm taking it down off the champagne. Took a break from the brown on the rampage.
Any SMITE player's favorite time of the year is just around the corner. Barely even a month left until the SMITE World Championships kicks off January 12th through 14th in Arlington, Texas, where we'll crown our Season 10 champion. And it could be anybody at this point. We've already had 4 of our SPL teams qualify, and with this event right now going on, we're seeing which 2 SCC teams can have a chance to make it to that world stage. Still this final set to go to see which of these teams is going to be. It's going to be the Scarabs, it's going to be the Wargs. It's going to be a hype event. If you can't be there, make sure you tune in. We'll be streaming on all of our platforms. Whether you're going to be there or not be there, you can also just pick up some merch. I'm just going to throw a shout out there. shop.highresstudios.com/SWC, and you can pick up all kinds of Worlds-related merch, or you can even just still pick up jerseys for all of your favorite teams, all that and more. Remember, go to shop.highresstudios.com/SWC. Jerseys, shirts, you can see t-shirts, bags, hoodies, all kinds of great stuff over there.
Oh my.
So make sure that you pick up your merch. Make sure you be there, or if you can't, make sure that you are tuning in for the World Championship. It's going to be great. Game number 1 here for the Solar Scarabs look pretty strong for them, playing around those objectives, keeping the Niflheim Wargs more than anything out of it. But Apreel and this Mercury really controlling the pacing of the game. And it's so strange to see now a second time that Mercury early game is just working out so well for these junglers.
And you beat me to it. I wanted to talk about Apreel. He played so good on this Mercury. We won't talk about the ult towards the end, Davey backing in the speed camp. Outside of that, this game was managed by Apreel. The objectives that he was able to burn, the fights that he took, his ganks in solo lane, everything about his play so far on this Mercury, on the Susano, he is playing exceptionally well, and I think he's the player you have to target if you're the Wargs. You have to get him off of comfort. You have to put him on something else, because at all points, and as you said, Mercury's a late game god. It's not something that's supposed to dominate the early game, but Apreel makes it look good early game, so I think you got to get him off of it. Switch it up, change it up. I also think Zyrhoes on this Baba is just way too much of a comfort pick. Even that Thoth, I think I would give him the Thoth over the Baba, because it is night and day difference, Zyrhoes Baba versus just about any other character. Thoth is just OP in general, so maybe not Thoth, but that is like two of the things that I'm looking at from the Scarabs comp that I would want to look away from.
I think the other thing I want to pull maybe from this Baba is that Zyrhoes, and maybe this has been a trend with the rest of the SCC mid laners that I just haven't noticed immediately, but this is a no prophetic cloak Baba. This is Baba in the truest sense of just damage for your mid laner. And there were points that we looked up and saw Zyrhoes plus Apreel equals dead carry in front of them. I mean, 1 crit plus a potion is doing upwards of 1,200 plus damage to any one of these squishier targets, and that combo is just enough for the Solar Scarabs to win out here in game number 1. A 5-0 for Apreel, 1-0 and 6. Again, not the flashiest of slash lines, but 27,000 damage from Zyrhoes in this game.
Also, on the Warg side of things, I think it's time we step away from this Yemoja, and I think we put Predss on something a little bit more aggressive. He died very early in this game, kind of putting the dual lane behind. And the reason you kind of pick this Yemoja is the teamfight potential, the healing that she brings. He's healing 5k, and the Sobek on the opposite side healed for 25k. Or 2,500, sorry. Not 25k.
That'd be insane.
That would be wild. With 2,500 with just Benevolence. So that's a little bit of a problem. If you're not able to play Yemoja's laning phase as well, the team fights didn't work out that well either. Don't look towards the Yemoja again. Take the Sobek way. I think Silence had a great Sobek game also, so that's an opportunity to go. But no more Yemoja, at least it has to be into a different enemy comp, because there was so much potential for this team to just play around the Yemoja.
I think in general, this Sobek has just been looking really good for the EU teams. I mean, you look over at players like Kha'Zix who have been commanding it, even back in time when Trixtank was still running amok in the league. I mean, that's a guy who had like nearly 80% win rate over like 70 or 80 games on the god. It was insane how well that players like him were able to perform on the pick, and it's now starting to trickle down to the rest of the EU SCC here. So we will see that Sobek actually band away with Baba and Raijin for the Niflheim Wargs. And for one of the first times, this is only the, I guess, technically second time this entire weekend, Athena has made her way into the picks, and it's going to go over to the Niflheim Wargs.
And the Scarabs not getting a ton of value giving up that Athena. I mean, Hachi, we've talked about it. You kind of just default to Hachi if you just want like a strong laner, does nothing really wrong, everything at least good. And Horus is not another god that I think of as this top tier pick. So a little bit of a give, I think, by the Scarabs. If they can draft, I guess, around this well enough, I think I'm fine with it. But I'd be a little worried giving up the Athena for just Hachi Horus so far.
I was just about to say, where's all of our solo lane mages that had normally been at that
There's
kind of top priority? Raijin was already banned away. Thoth hasn't really been there, but Opwash, Poseidon, still namely both available if the Scarabs just want to double draft that. Maybe if the Wargs even give an opportunity to do that. Immediately for the second wave of bans out of the Scarabs, it is going to be the Ares and the
Get the Mercury.
And then a wheel. Is that
Get the Mercury.
Osiris? Hold on, am I seeing? Is that an Osiris?
It is, for some reason it is.
What? What? Osiris when like everything else exists?
Yeah, it's not a solo lane ban, surely, right? So it's got to be a jungle Osiris ban. And it's not even like, Apreel doesn't even go back to the Mercury. He just says, here's Hunbots. I'm going to lock in Hunbots here. And, I mean, he's played great on just about everything we've seen so far, so why should I doubt the Hunbots?
I mean, Hunbots is just a good god. I'm actually going to try and talk as I search through here to see if, like, Apreel's just got something like insane Osiris play or something like that. Maybe it was for Deathwalker and this Hunbots was just a ruse the entire time, but like an Osiris ban just felt so out of, it didn't even feel like it was in the ballpark at this point. Like, you know, I don't even say it's out of left field. No, this is not even, they're pulling from like the other leagues at this point, the other fields out there. But will be Susano Odin for Niflheim Wargs and the Hunbat's Bellona to round out the bottom two now for the Solar Scarabs. How do you kind of feel about the Wargs composition now with these bottom two drafted in?
I like the Susano pick. I think Susano's looked really good this weekend, so I'm always down for a Susano pick. I think the Wargs comp overall makes a lot of sense. My only worry with them is it feels like their comp doesn't have a ton of early game true strength. Like, yes, Anhur's a great early game god, but Athena's not really a great early game character. She's fine. She just kind of farms to the early game, tries to get her 5. Odin's not expecting to win solo. Scylla's not expecting to win mid, so that's my one worry for this Warg side of things.
We'll have to see if the Wargs can scale into that late game and find themselves a win here up against the Solar Scarabs and tie things up, or will it be the Solar Scarabs to be your second team to make it to the group stage? We'll find out in Game 2 with our casters.
Solar Scarabs trying to lock up that second position, fighting for a world spot, and the Niflheim Wargs trying to repeat history here with a reverse sweep of the Solar Scarabs as they did in their first matchup. You got Dimes, you got Trells. We're throwing it back to 2014 here, Trelly, with 2 warriors in the solo lane. What's happening?
Well, it just seems like the warriors are the flavor here. You know, you're a little bit tankier. You can do a little bit more late game, I suppose. I'm not sure what's going through their heads, but I can tell you one thing. Deathwalker has played a ton of Bellona, and Panvich has played a ton of Odin. Maybe not so much recently, but I guess that's the idea, right? You want a little bit more of those tank stats. So it is good initiation as well, and it wasn't as if the Solar Scarabs don't have a comp that, you know, doesn't appreciate the Odin. It's not as if Outwash is going to love it. Deathwalker has to use his ult every time he wants to get out, so maybe that was the idea, a bit of a counter pick here from Panvich. And now we'll have to see. Are you rotating out constantly and getting that cage, getting the forcing out the phantom shells, things like that? Because there's no shells even available at the moment. It's actually beads for silence on this Horus, so that shell is going to take a while to get online.
One pickup I really love, an adjustment for composition-wise, is WorstTurttle going on this Susano instead of a Nemesis. Nemesis can be that hyper carry potential. We didn't really see it come to fruition, though, in game number 1. But picking up the Susano, which absolutely is a setup king, a 100-0, a hyper carry if you want to be, it seems to fit my idea of WorstTurttle a little bit cleaner.
Susano is him. That's what you're saying, and I understand. He's got the hard carry potential. It's a little bit rough into a matchup like the Hunbats, which Apreel has, you know, Fear No Evil at level 5, but WorstTurttle doesn't actually have access to the beads. Start with the Blink, which I think can be risky, but you get so much more aggression at your disposal with Blink. You don't have to use your third ability to close gap. You can use that for damage, use it for the auto attack reset, and it just means your DPS is so much better. So I don't hate it for WorstTurttle as long as he can navigate around Apreel and not get, you know, constantly hit by the Fear No Evils once level 5 comes around. But remember, besides the early first blood for Predss essentially invading a purple buff, a lot of the fights were over towards blue buff. So once that blue buff spawns in over on right, gotta look towards these junglers because there might be some aggression.
I especially like this Odin pick. Even though it's not in the jungle, it is in the solo lane. Once the solo laners start rotating, I mean, take a look at the Solar Scarabs, right? Deathwalker's going to have to ult out of the cage. Zyrhoes is just stuck in there. Same thing goes for iSilenced and Echrome as well. And when you have a big circle character like the Scylla, like WorstTurttle with the ultimate from Susano as well, I mean, you get a couple members in the cage and all of a sudden it's lights out.
Yeah, it's not going to be fun, especially when you have the follow-up to actually kill in the cage, which I think the Susano and, of course, the Scylla can definitely provide. So I've got my eyes on GunTTERR as well. These Ama monsters are going to be chunking once they come online. We see a bit of a dual sort of invade going on here, where Deathwalker invaded all the while, and now it seems like WorstTurttle did the same, and now they're going to rotate and be like, oh, you took that blue? Cool, I took that blue as well. And Predss also going for a bit of an invade. It's going to take a while. Predss should be able to grab this speed buff. I always love seeing junglers' faces when they realize it, but maybe iSilenced already heard this out, and I'm wondering if he noticed or just like gave up. Was like, dude, there's no way I can defend that. I'm gonna get my green. I'm guessing he noticed and was like, sorry, man, your speed's gone. So yeah, Apreel's not gonna check that one. Unfortunate for him, but that just shows, you know, how you can play the map and say, okay, we know for a fact that there's going to be, you know, WorstTurtle's over on right, Apreel's over on right, so I can go ahead and go for the speed buff, no problem.
Level 5s for both junglers. Apreel opting for the beads and WorstTurttle going for the blink. So you can expect WorstTurttle to get going rather early on, maybe finishing off that Jotun's Wrath or that first item penetration. Obviously, Ultimate's online here at level 5 with the Blink online as well. WorstTurttle could gank from pretty much any direction effectively. Level 3, iSilenced is behind a little bit, just ticking now over to 4, but level 5 for Echrome. So escapability damage, GunTTeRR has to dash away from apreel, who jumps in aggressively onto a low mana WorstTurtle here. With that blink, no beads available. Teleport away, some tick damage coming out from Zyrhoes, not enough for WorstTurttle to take the spill for first blood.
I mean, that's like the best option you could ask for, except for the fact that, you know, the corpses couldn't quite hit. Zyrhoes goes for fleeting breath, corpse explosion over the wall, couldn't hit the one. That would have been the big burst damage that confirmed that kill, but ate the entirety of Fear No Evil, and now apreel's stuck in the cage, is going to get slowed. Bird Bomb is good, but GunTTeRR needs the damage to close gap, and he just cannot make it. Good body blocks there from Deathwalker, so both junglers making it out very low. But difference maker is apreel had to beats, whereas WorstTurttle still has that Blink and Typhoon available. Blink Susano could be just what the doctor ordered for the Wargs to find a first, but if WorstTurttle can get a good target.
I mean, my eyeballs immediately go to the middle lane, right? Zyrhoes, no ultimate, does have the beads online as well, but this Puch is just inherently such an immobile character with no mobility options. I mean, a Typhoon's going to knock up. You have tons of chase on the side of Susano from WorstTurttle. It just seems to me that all signs point to Zyrhoes taking a spill, as WorstTurtle and apreel just refuse to stop hanging out over on this right-hand side here. Both looking to get their solo laners ahead, or at the very least secure their blue buffs from enemy engagement. Deathwalker's coming in. Rally here just to secure the blue buff. Panvich locking down Deathwalker, and the blue buff was secured by WorstTurttle, so each solo laner has secured their respective blues.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Deathwalker doesn't get the XP for his, right? Because apreel just soloed it. Deathwalker wanted to try and go for the steal attempt, knew there was no kill potential towards this Bellona. That fouling start can be very difficult. It's just a lot of prots, and of course, haven't seen tanky warriors in the solo lane too much, but that is one of their strengths, right? Being able to ult in and, you know, not really have a care in the world this early on. And that was kind of the idea. So blue buff's essentially just mirrored there. So we get to see moving into about that early gank phase. Those early blue buffs are the best chances where you can really find some ganks into the solo lane, and because that didn't happen, now it's going to be, hey, can you poke anyone out? But look at this, WorstTurttle on the left side of the map. Echrome has ultimate. It wouldn't be easy to find a kill, and he recognizes that, so doesn't even use the blink, just gives up on that one.
I'd have been dissuaded, as Davey had used the big Desert Fury ultimate to clear wave a little bit ago, just now coming back online. WorstTurttle getting locked down here from the fear. An immediate response from Predss, channeling the Defender of Olympus ultimate there from Athena, giving the jungler a few extra protections, and nothing to it, as it's going to be an ultimate for ultimate trade. GunTTeRR had used I'm a Monster as well. Not sure when that went down, but clearly no kills resulting from it. So maybe using for the movement speed, CC immunity, all kinds of potential outcomes there.
Davey is owning minions with this ult, bro.
Yeah, seriously. Like, David's like, you know what? I'm not going to get a kill. My team's calling for farm. iSilenced pulled back in there by the Athena, able to dash away. That's something else I wanted to highlight. I mean, there's so much safety around the map. Dave and Echrome, both CC immune, both have great mobility. You're not going to catch out Predss or Silenced. Panvich is getting 2v1 here. apreel and Deathwalker trying to make something happen, but WorstTurttle and Predss on the way to help out their tanky solo laner here, and guess who? It's GunTTeRR joining the fray as well. Typhoon doesn't knock up apreel. Nice beats. WorstTurttle target switching now back as I'm a Monster connects with one, but Deathwalker takes almost no damage, and in fact dishes it back out to the jungler for the Niflheim Wargs. Corpses have been unleashed, forcing Niflheim Wargs back. It was originally an engagement by the Wargs, turns right back around. Solar Scarabs find first blood, and maybe a little bit more onto Predss.
Yeah, just a little bit too much. It was close, and Predss takes a lot of damage as well. WorstTurttle almost gets the kill, dives underneath the tower, dives a little bit too far, unfortunately, and that's a beautiful rotation from the Solar Scarabs. I mean, Zyrhoes going all the way over there is not easy. Of course, Silence got a ton of mobility, but the whole squad knew a fight was going to occur. apreel does have Fear No Evil, but hasn't dropped it just yet. Gonna be forced to, yeah, once Davey walks up, just to make sure he can get out. And that's going to be what happens. I don't really think you go in any further. Seems like Silence won too, but that was just to try and defend apreel. And that's going to be the end of the scrap. But, you know, this all goes back to Davey, right? Using his ultimate just in wave, and I think that goes to show he knows, and Echrome knows, there is no 1v1ing happening over there, right? They are just there to farm, and because of that, all the fighting must happen elsewhere. Where at? In this case, a cooldown buff on the right side of the map. everyone rotates over except for those hunters, because Echrome and Davy, I don't think they're going to hit each other too much. I think it's going to be a whole lot of this. Walk up to shield camp. Oh, you got it? Okay, I'm just going to let you have it then, and then move on with your day. And that seems to be the whole game plan here for the left side of the map.
I mean, game plan across the map as well. Book of Thoth still not fully stacked up here in the middle lane, and we saw the Scylla GunTTERR do kind of not a ton of damage, right? With the Crush, I'm a Monster combo. Deathwalker barely got scratched from the ultimate. Of course, GunTTERR on the Scylla is going to get more power online as you start hitting those level marks where Scylla's passive comes into play. Penetration going to be important here for GunTTERR as well. It's going to be Stack City here for multiple members of the Niflheim Wargs. Might be a little bit more passive as the clock ticks over to 9:30. Warden looks pretty good on all the maps, or around the map from both squads, I should say. It's going to be quiet here. Middle lane, Silence gets locked down. That's a pretty tanky Horus.
Oh yeah, he's going to be just fine. You said it right. GunTTERR is scaling. That is the idea, right? The Scylla is playing for late game. That is when the damage will come online. At the moment, not going to be too threatening. You need some itemization before those crushes really start chunking. And that is just not where GunTTERR is in the build quite yet. Whereas Zyrhoes, he just went back, bought a full Divine Ruin. I assume GunTTERR's got a similar amount of gold in pocket, just hasn't been able to spend it up yet, because it's just been running around. Yeah, 2,300. Could buy that Spear of Desolation, or even close to a full Spear of Desos, or a Spear of Divine Ruin, man. No spears in Divine. It's just a Divine Ruin. Could just go back and buy it essentially in full with a little bit more gold. So that's the idea, right? Just try and get as much farm as possible. Save the ultimate in case a Gold Fury comes through, but seems like more passive play. Apreel has sent out some ultimates towards WorstTurttle because there's no beads there, but has not been able to find the kill off of it because there just isn't enough follow-up quite yet.
Gold Fury up on the map here, but neither one of these squads really looking to get objective happy. But we talked about Secure in game number 1 and how it was just all over the map. Looking at the Solar Scarabs, not quite the same tale here in game number 2. Really only the corpse explosion from Zyrhoes. GunTTERR really having the edge of things. So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked in game number 1. What is the Solar Scarabs game plan here when it comes to taking out objectives and making sure they can do so successfully?
Well, my guess is Deathwalker, yeah, he's going this attack speed build that he went last time as well, where it's like the upgraded heavy executioner into, I believe, a prophetic cloak, some tank stats later on, but does have the auto attack, right? So Deathwalker should be able to help shred through some of these objectives, the Eagles Rally as well. You got plenty of burst with Zyrhoes, not as if it's easy going up against GunTTERR, but if that's what you're relying on, it's not as if it's going to be a problem. Then you throw Echrome in, who's got his Heavenly Banner. He says, I'm going to give the whole squad attack speed. I don't think the Solar Scarabs are too worried about it, especially when they're up, just about 2,000, bordering 3,000 gold this early on. It was just a first blood, right? That's not where that gold lies. It's all in the just better farm. Echrome's got a level lead. Silence has a level lead. They all have a level lead at this point just by getting a bit more of those camps, clearing their waves a bit faster, not letting anything die to tower. And that's just showing exactly how the Solar Scarabs like to play the map. When they feel their lead is big enough, that's when they'll try to go for these Gold Furies.
We've also been seeing a lot more rotation than we saw in game number 1. People leaving the mid lane and supports roaming. Silence take a shot there from Crush, as it is the Spear of Desolation online here for GunTTERR. A little bit more power cooldown in the pocket as well. In goes Davy aggressively, a dash away from Echrome. And nothing to it as Desert Fury used. Echrome actually used the ultimate in response as well. So both these hunters a little bit unsafe as WorstTurttle immediately taking advantage. Nice Aegis from Echrome to avoid death for a moment. Apreel in as well. And guess who's here? It's Panvich over from solo lane. Deathwalker follows right behind. Apreel's going to take out WorstTurttle. Panvich turns it right back around onto the enemy ADC. Predss is low. Deathwalker chunking away. Build doing its work, as Predss is able to escape successfully. A 1-for-1 trade, WorstTurttle falling for the Wargs, and Echrome going the way of the grayscale for the Solar Scarabs. The Solar Scarabs healthier, though, and could be looking at this Gold Fury.
Certainly could. They're just walking past it, and it looks like GunTTERR was hiding in the back just in case he had to go in for a steal attempt. Not going to be the case because the Solar Scarabs aren't pulling.
Oh, boy.
They're going to try and chase down GunTTERR here, but he's got I'm a monster. That should be enough movement speed to get him out of trouble. I mean, Deathwalker was close. If he did end up using his ult on a Davy instead, maybe he's got a better chance of chasing down that kill. But at the very least, the rotations from these solo laners, this is the benefit of playing a warrior as opposed to a mage. You don't necessarily need beads and Aegis. you can just go for, you know, the beads and then a teleport, which means that Panvich and Deathwalker can make themselves known in these fights much easier and much faster. You got to pay attention to where Panvich and DW are on the map, though, because they could show up at any moment.
It's a great point because I was surprised too. I mean, when Deathwalker and Panvich showed up in the duo lane at 14 minutes, I had become so accustomed to these mages not having teleport online that they kind of just walk their way into scrums, you know? Panvich and Deathwalker show up, totally forgot warriors even buy teleport, you know? So you're totally right. Both these squads are going to have to become a little bit more aware of their positioning on the map and enemy warding especially, and knowing when solo laners could make the rotation in. Now that the teleport relics are getting upgraded here, able to do so more often and around the map more. Gold Fury's still up, Pyro's still up. Pyromancer going to be the easier of those two targets. You got ultimates online across the board. Actives are looking pretty healthy as well, minus Echrome. WorstTurtle's going to get locked down here. Beads forced away. Apreel leaps out, joining Zyrhoes. It's going to be a relic for ultimate trade, and the Niflheim Wargs immediately step into the Gold Fury pit.
Wow, I mean, that was a clean play. It was all WorstTurttle. I mean, honestly, overcommitting. It seemed like he didn't quite recognize how much damage Apreel and Zyrhoes had, was forced to beads. And then you recognize, oh, the whole team was over here. Panvich was over here. It was a bait, right? You're using as much as you can to sort of force out Apreel and Zyrhoes. They use some damage, don't quite get the kill, but then everyone retreats, and the Wargs say, hey, easiest Gold Fury of our lives, let's pull it, let's retreat, and that's exactly what happens. The Wargs are trying to climb back into this game, and that was a great call. I'm not sure if it was, you know, the initial play, maybe WorstTurttle thought he could just 1v1, but it ended up working out. It sent the Solar Scarabs a little bit back, put them on the defensive, and they were able to go in for the objective immediately. But because so many ultimates were used, so many relics, the Solar Scarabs, they could get aggressive here. They could go for the Pyromancer, and I think they should, because if not, you just lost the Gold Fury for essentially nothing.
Well, the Solar Scarabs immediately rotated over to the Pyromancer, but a nice showing from the Niflheim Wargs made the Solar Scarabs think twice about starting things up. And you can see WorstTurttle taking advantage of that hesitation. I mean, the Solar Scarabs were kind of dancing around the Pyro for a good amount of time. Echrome taking a lot of damage from that Desert Fury, hops on the horse to get away as well. WorstTurttle doesn't quite have the follow-up necessary to chase down Echrome. Davy also had the Aegis Force as well, or not Davy, rather the enemy ADC, Echrome, forced the Aegis. That is a lot expended to escape. Saw the Athena ultimate used as well, though, so quite a bit committed onto Echrome, who's able to successfully live, and the kill columns stay locked at 2-1 in favor of the Scarabs.
And a huge Horus ult right after, just to make sure that purple buff went down a little bit quicker. Using to the skies just in case there was more aggression, or in case Davy or Predss hug around, which in this case they just did not. I really do think the Scarab should have pulled immediately, since that, you know, that Pyromancer has not been done yet. And Gunter's ult's back up. The beads are coming back out. Everything that was used, that advantage that they had once the Niflheim Wargs pulled gold, is all but gone at this point. So no real reason to go in for the pull unless you feel as if you have an opportunity, which doesn't seem like they do. So it's just back to the farm game here, Dimes. The beacon is going to spawn in, which can incite some violence, can incite some fights, but more often than not, it's just whichever team gets there first kind of scares away the other squad. There's at least 3 Scarabs around, and I only see 2 members of the Wargs that are even close at the moment.
All weekend long, you know, we've seen some calculated games from the Scarabs, from the Wargs, of course from Hex Mambo, but this is the first game as Echrome's getting engaged upon and getting dropped so low. No Aegis available for Echrome, who gets dove and just straight up dies. Pred's able to escape in the middle lane. Zyrhoes popping the ultimate. Looks like Fear No Evil from the Hunbots was utilized, as well as Panvich rotates into this mid lane tower for backup just in case it's necessary. It's going to be a 4v5, the Solar Scarabs on the worst end of the power play, as Davy's pushing into this tier 2 tower on the left-hand side. Deathwalker is going to watch on as the structure falls. The Stygian Beacon going to be the next point of contention for both these teams.
Yeah, it seemed like Deathwalker wanted to try and save that tower, but couldn't quite do so and didn't want to expend teleport, or it wasn't quite available. Either way, there's a Bellona on the left side of the map dealing with Davy for now. And that was a calculated play as well. Echrome's Aegis was pulled a bit ago, and then the re-gank situation happens where WorstTurttle says, you know, we can try and dive as far as possible, and ends up working out because Echrome's dead. The Wargs are going in for a Pyromancer call, and they'll grab it, which which means that there's gonna be a Hachiman on the left side of the map that just wants some free farm. He's like, dude, I've been gone for a while. I've been ganked twice. I'm dead. Just let me farm for a bit, and then you guys can call me over to fight for some objectives. But the Wargs have climbed back in this game and put themselves in a favorable situation.
I'm in the hill. You can see gold and experience were really trending towards the Solar Scarabs, and now a straight upward momentum here for the Niflheim Wargs. Couple objectives, couple nice kills, some good macro play. And the Wargs are not only right back in this thing, but are actually on top. Even though kills are even, experience definitely edging the way of the Wargs here. Minus Predss, 1 level down to iSilenced. Keep bringing it up, but there's a reason. In the first meeting between these squads, Scarabs take game number 1, Niflheim Wargs take game 2 and 3. In a little bit quicker fashion, still was around 30, 25 minutes, somewhere in there. But the Niflheim Wargs looking to repeat the past here in game number 2 and send the Solar Scarabs packing.
They would certainly like to, and they're in a good position to, at least even up the sets at this point. But the Primal Fury spawned back in. No teams looked at it just yet. Remember, it was the Wargs who pulled it off of a bit of a bait, bit of a botched engagement by WorstTurttle. At the very least, it pushed the Solar Scarabs away. Now, they need to be wary of how quickly the Niflheim Wargs can pull an objective like that. They've got 1 ward on it for now. Doesn't seem like Davy's going to walk up and sentry it. He's got one in his inventory, but doesn't want to get too close to Primal without knowing exactly where Apreel is, or if Deathwalker can teleport behind him, something like that. But still, this is going to be the target. I assume the Wargs are in a position to go for a pull, or at the very least try and find some aggression. Maybe force out a relic from Echrome. Maybe look towards, just anyone who's running around in the jungle. You pull 1 relic, you get someone below half health. This Primal Fury suddenly gets a lot easier to pull. And that's been the call. I mean, it's been a lot of WorstTurttle hanging around Davy, saying, hey, you've got some crit online, you've got Kins, you've got Exy, this Anhur is a threat. You just find me someone, bro, we'll dive him. You Desert Fury, I'll go in. And it's still just them two. No one else seems to be, showing any sort of interest in this objective just yet. But the Solar Scarabs are close. Remember, Silence could easily dropship the whole team or get taunted back in.
Silence with the beads to escape the taunt there from Predss, and we've reached critical mass where a taunt that lands on its target successfully, all of a sudden you're staring down a Sikkim, a Crush, a Gunter's entire kit, Davy coming in as well. Typhoon is going to be out. Who's it going to knock up? 3 members of the Solar Scarabs go up in the air. Fear No Evil doesn't find anyone. WorstTurttle takes out iSilenced. Deathwalker, the recipient of an I'm a Monster over the wall, beads away the taunt. Predss leading the charge here. Half HP. Same thing goes for Panvich. The tanks, the front line, doing their part to take down iSilenced. A 4v5. Niflheim Wargs don't drop a single soul, and the Solar Scarabs expend everything. Predss and Davy still with ultimates in the back pocket, and the Niflheim Wargs kind of abandoning this Primal Fury after taking down iSilenced and pushing the Solar Scarabs out of the pit.
Yeah, I mean, usually the call here would be like to go for a Fire Giant or something if you know the team's going to overcommit, but Echrome, the only one who could go for a steal, he's on a ward, so he's going to have to dash away immediately. So yeah, Primal Fury should be going the way of the Wargs uncontested. Zyrhoes also does not want to step forward because Panvich is here, and that cage is almost off cooldown. Another beautiful engage, and that's the reason that this Athena pick is just so highly contested. You talked about it as well. Just taunt, right? Dash taunt, easy engage. What do the Scarabs have to do? iSilenced has to dash on someone because he doesn't have blink. He's got beads and phantom shells, so can't blink in and stun. Apreel doesn't want to be the first one in because Hunbatz, as Fear No Evil, yeah, can get some relics, it can force some escapes, but you're not finishing any of those kills unless the ult comes later. And Deathwalker essentially just got GunTTRR to like 70% HP and couldn't finish the kill. So the dive seems to be having some struggles here for the Scarabs, whereas the Wargs say, hey, did you taunt someone? Okay, I'm going to drop everything on that guy you taunted, and then we're just going to repeat the process. It is so much easier for Predss to get active than anyone on the side of the Solar Scarabs. And Panvich is also incredibly tanky. He can open that up as well. The Blink Cage just opens so many doors for them. So I think the Wargs are doing exactly what they need to. Just playing it slow, using their comp to their advantage, and just slowly and slowly just climbing that lead a bit more and more in their favor.
Zyrhoes and Apreel, the only members here from the Solar Scarabs at the moment to contest the Pyromancer pull. Deathwalker and the remainder of the Scarabs have joined the fray as well. An ultimate in there from iSilenced. I don't know why, considering he was like 70 feet away from the Pyromancer, but hey, I got him there, I guess.
He was getting some vision,
started
man.
up here now. Yeah, right. actually. That's a great point. Silence dropped to half HP, under half HP now. Going very deep for not much success there. Almost nothing expended by the Niflheim Wargs to knock down iSilenced. Apreel in the backline here. Looking at Panvich. Could be the target between Deathwalker and Apreel. Sounds still pretty low. A little bit of heals in the Horus kit, but not used to great effect here around this Pyromancer fight. And in pits like this, it is just so scary to the idea of getting taunted. I'm a monster as GunTTERR goes up into the ultimate, uses it on the Pyromancer, but late as the Solar Scarabs grab the objective. Apreel separating the backline as well. A little bit of CC and damage coming out from Davey in the form of the ultimate. Silence locked down, Silence put down as GunTTERR put the finishing touches on the support for the Solar Scarabs. They give up Pyromancer, but they steal a soul in return.
Yeah, I mean, they had the confirmation, the Solar Scarabs able to grab it for themselves. Unfortunately, GunTTERR can't go for the Pyro, but you'll take the kill onto iSilenced for sure. A bit of a sketchy engagement once again. It was just, you know, when Panvich was lazy backing and I saw Apreel so deep in the backline, I figured Deathwalker and Apreel would try and go for 100-0. There's no beads on this Odin. They decided against it, and now the Wargs are nearby. They've got vision on Fire Giant, as the Scarabs do as well, but they decide against it. I was going to say, not an easy call to make there, even though it's a 5v4. Silence could ult in once he spawns in. Has a lot of movement speed to try and just close gap and catch up with the team. So it would be a sketchy Fire Giant call at the very least, but there's a taunt onto Zyrhoes, and he's stuck in the pillar. That beads almost means nothing.
Oh, what a pillar the Aegis used as well. Davey playing hero here in game number 2. The Niflheim Wargs off the back of their ADC being a CC god there. Putting the pillar up successfully. iSilenced with nothing after the first engagement. What a Typhoon. Grabbing 3 and throwing them in the air there from WorstTurttle. Not a follow-up from the Wargs to make a play off of that big ultimate, though. And once again, it's a 4v5 here, as the Niflheim Wargs are chaining kills successfully. Silenced with nothing, shoved away there by Davey. Apreel, huge! Fear no evil. 1 falls, 2 falls. Apreel with a double. Godlike ultimate there. Davey and Panvich are going to have to walk away. Davey knocked up, taking plenty of damage as well. Good target selection here from the Solar Scarabs. Nice follow-up from Deathwalker as well. Apreel with a 3-piece, the hat trick for the jungler. It is going to end there. A tier 1 tower falls, and the Solar Scarabs walk their happy selves right to the Fire Giant.
Yeah, there's no one else on the Scarabs I would want to have that triple kill after an ultimate like that. WorstTurttle nearby. The Typhoon is coming off cooldown shortly, but steps over a ward, is going to walk right into Zyrhoes as Panvich is also here. The Fire Giant's getting low. Do they go in for the steal or the fight? A 2v5 doesn't seem favorable.
The Solar Scarabs immediately hop off the Fire Giant and on to WorstTurttle. He goes into the grayscale for 52 seconds. Who else but Apreel to finish off the enemy jungler. Solar Scarabs nab the Fire Giant. It's just the base one. It's not enhanced at the moment at 26. Call it 27 minutes. The Niflheim Wargs have relinquished the hesitant grasp they had on this game number 2, and the Solar Scarabs have reclaimed it with, panache, with an oomph. In that statement, the Solar Scarabs 4 walking down the right-hand lane, a Titan right behind them.
I mean, that just made their engage problem so easy, right? That was the issue. The Scarabs didn't know how to start fights because Silence doesn't have Blink. They don't have a dash taunt. They just didn't have any way to get aggressive. If you group up under a tier 2 tower and let Apreel wrap around the back and get a 3-man Fear No Evil, that makes the job essentially effortless, and that's exactly what happened. The rest of the team was just able to chase down. Deathwalker held Eagle's rally for so long. He knew Davey was going to jump away eventually, and so he said, I'm faster than you. I'm just going to run you down until you're forced to jump, and then I'll be able to chase you with this ultimate, and that's exactly what happened as well. And now the Solar Scarabs are in the driver's seat. Doesn't solve their engage problem, but certainly solves their siege problems for the time being. That Fire Giant buff will suit them nicely. The Niflheim Wargs get a consolation prize in the Primal Fury, since the Scarabs weren't on this side of the map anyways. They've got 2 minutes and 42 seconds. They can certainly group up, push down tier 1 on left. I'm thinking tier 2, at least one more is guaranteed. But the Niflheim Wargs, I don't think that's the end of the world for them, right? They still do have Athena, and that's a huge benefit. They still have this Odin cage. It's just you can't be grouping up and giving that much value to Apreel, right? If you're hitting 3-man Fear No Evils, the fight should be lost. You gotta spread out a bit and at least keep eyes on this jungler because he can make some big plays as just shown.
Niflheim Wargs capitalizing on the Solar Scarabs backing now, grabbing the Fury and the Pyromancer. Both neutral objectives go the way of the Niflheim Wargs. And you really hit the nail on the head there. One stumble does not a loss make, right? The Niflheim Wargs found or rather the Solar Scarabs found the miracle engage there on the Niflheim Wargs. Not much for the Wargs to do about that. Doesn't mean this game has completely flipped on its head, and the Niflheim Wargs certainly still able to fight back as a tier 2 tower drops for the Solar Scarabs, courtesy of the Solar Scarabs. On the left-hand side, only one tower remaining here for the Niflheim Wargs in the middle lane. 5 members of the Solar Scarabs grouping up, Fire Giant around all of their wastes, looking to snag the final objective before the Phoenixes go.
Gotta call it out now. Alternate timeline was picked up for Zyrhoes. If you get a Scylla reset, you might not actually grab it because he's got that alternate timeline, right? Could survive a little bit longer. There's been some clutch alternate timelines so far this weekend. You got to make sure the Wargs are ready for that sort of play because this Outwash would be a lovely target to try and pick first. There's the taunt on iSilenced, but here comes apreel, big ultimate.
Apreel finds the ultimate, but also is the recipient of a Sick'em from Scylla. It takes about half of his health bar there. Tier 2 tower is not even a thought in the minds of the Solar Scarabs. They saw one ability, one rotation from Scylla, and they're like, oh, wait, we should not do this. Like, let's find a team fight, let's find a couple of kills, let's back off. And let this, this Fire Giant, we got a little bit of value out of it. We got a left-hand tower and a right-hand tower and some other stuff around the map. Let's just not get greedy and be happy with what we've taken so far.
Yeah, the issue is, one of the main counters that people do to Athena is the second she dashes in, you blink past her, right? You blink behind her, you're not taunted, now you can kill all the follow-up. The issue is, you get your support gets taunted, right? Silence gets taunted in, so GunTTeRR says, I'm gonna use all my abilities on where this Athena is, right? And that's exactly where apreel blinked into. So yeah, it was a 4-man Fear No Evil, but it was also a Scylla Crush, a Poly Shot, and a Sick'em all sent right to where apreel was blinking to. So as much of a great ultimate as it was, there was also some good counterplay, and that turns into a retreat call. But like I said, one tier 2 down over on left. Didn't quite get the second one. They'll accept that at this point. They were able to put themselves in a much more favorable situation. But now, I guess you got some better targets. Let's take a look at relics. Beads down for GunTTeRR from that ultimate. That's about it. So apreel, with no blink and no beads himself, has to try to get to a Scylla that's going to be deep in the backline without a blink stun from Silence, without an Eagles rally from Deathwalker. Like, those things are not going to be starting this fight. Apreel's job is not going to be easy. I expect to see him, sneak through mid-wave or maybe over by the cooldown buff. Just not walk straight forward because Predss has been on point with these taunts.
And even though GunTTeRR doesn't have beads for another minute yet, as soon as apreel jumps on the Scylla, you just hit I'm a Monster. All of a sudden, you're CC immune. You turn around, you do 80% of apreel's health bar. And the fight goes the way of the Niflheim Wargs handily. Grouping up as 5 here. Fire Giant respawning back on the map. This time it is an enhanced one here at 31, 40, 50. Called 32 minutes in game number 2 here. Panvich has got the shield wrapped around the Odin here. No jump in. No starting the Fire Giant just yet. This is one of those precipice moments. You can kind of feel it in your gut, Trelly, where this fight may break the game completely open here for the Solar Scarabs. A big team wipe of Fire Giant. And all of a sudden, you're pushing down the right-hand lane. Panvich goes in aggressively, but there's just nothing to it for the Niflheim Wargs. No follow-up, no nothing. Didn't force any relics, really, even out of the Solar Scarabs. So the cage is down for almost no benefit there.
It was the Phantom Shell, so I guess you could take that, right?
Sure,
if you get the Phantom Shell, you can look for one more cage in a couple minutes. So now it's up to the Solar Scarabs. Bro, cage is down, let's go in. That's exactly what happens, but the double Sick'em and Eagles Rally gets no value. I think that's almost worse. Who cares if your cage is down? You lost Deathwalker's ultimate, and you get some great poke.
Solar Scarabs are going to confirm the Pyromancer, but it's just a Pyromancer at 33 minutes, sure. It's a little helpful. You grab a Runic Bomb. Those things can be pretty deadly, especially when stacked. Otherwise, the Solar Scarabs, even though they're at a pretty decent gold lead, we've hit that point in the game, Trelly, 33 minutes where gold is negligible anymore. People are reaching full builds. They're starting to buy fully upgraded relics, power pots, things of that nature. Levels have completely become experience rather completely become a pointless stat as everyone's level 20. Niflheim Wargs are just as strong here as the Solar Scarabs. 33 minutes. iSilenced gets taunted in. Sikkim does so much damage here.
WorstTurttle.
In the late game. Apreel just annihilates WorstTurttle, deleted off the map, is able to get the Typhoon off at the very least. Echrome was the target of the dive from WorstTurttle, but not able to put the final remarks on any of the Solar Scarabs. So for the next 50 seconds, the Niflheim Wargs are going to be missing a critical component of their engagement.
I mean, what a beautiful engage. It seemed like the Wargs had a great call, but unfortunately, WorstTurttle in the backline gets deleted. Now the Solar Scarabs. Predss goes in for the dash taunt, but this enhanced Fire Giant is theirs for the taking as long as someone CCs GunTTERR. Or you got to watch out for Predss double bombs as well. 2 runic bombs could be some great confirmation here. This isn't as guaranteed as I thought. The Scarabs still are going to go for it anyways, but the Wargs have to be zoned.
The Silence taking so much damage as in goes Deathwalker onto Predss, who walks away, doesn't have to use the dash quite yet. 10 seconds now for WorstTurttle to come back online. Tons of mobility. Is going to make it to the Fire Giant pretty fast. Panvich with the cage online as well. Predss goes in, finds the taunt in the backline as Panvich, but Apreel says the same thing. Onto one. Davy taking ton of damage here from the Hunbots, boxing him out. Silence has joined the fray. Echrome finds one. Everyone on the Solar Scarabs feasting on the Niflheim Wargs. WorstTurttle just responds in enough time to watch the rest of his squad take a tumble, trying to find some kind of return.
Does he even get the one?
5. That's a deicide. That's a surrender vote. Apreel with the taunt onto the Niflheim Wargs, and the Solar Scarabs are going to walk their way into the base. Niflheim Wargs take the first meeting between these two squads, and Solar Scarabs come back revenge with an exclamation point.
Wow, I mean, the Solar Scarabs definitely earned their spot going to group stages, but it just seemed like this game was so one-sided, right? The Wargs had the ease of engage. Dash taunt was just destroying everything the Scarabs could do. Then one beautiful 3-man ultimate, a triple kill to Apreel, opened that game wide open. The Scarabs said, wait, that's all we needed. Now we're back in it. They got all the control at Fire Giant, and they were able to just chain that consistently. I still thought, even at the 4v5, that EFG wasn't confirmed. The Scarabs thought that too. They said, who cares about the objective? We're just going to fight you.
Solar Scarabs with sweet vengeance earned their way to taking on an SPL team for a shot at Worlds. Apreel for MVP. Let's throw it to the desk to break it down.
A sweet victory for the Solar Scarabs. They notched their way to the SWC group stage as your second European seed to do so. And really, I think emphasizing exactly where Trelly left off in analysis, that team fight under Tier 2 Tower, the Fear No Evil from Apreel on the Hunbats, really turned the tide of the game. But maybe part of it's a bit of a misstep and maybe misjudgment, at least by the Niflheim Wargs. I would have thought you got a couple of players down, go straight to the Fire Giant, but instead they push that tower, and that ends up being what the Solar Scarabs are exactly looking for.
Yeah, and I think it's exactly that. They had a pretty free Fire Giant just waiting for them there, and they opt for a safer, I guess. It was supposed to be a safer way, because if you go and you take a fight under the enemy's Tier 2, the worst that happens is you just back up. Somebody dies, yes, but you're not losing anything. You go to Fire Giant, you lose Fire Giant fight, you're losing the entire Fire Giant. So maybe they thought it was a little bit of a safer call. Unfortunately, it was not safe at all. They get 2-man, 3-man died actually there, and then from that moment forward, the Scarabs kind of take over and start dominating the game. And as Dime said towards the end, Apreel for MVP. Apreel really took over this set. And even going back to the Yomi Tanuki set earlier in the day, Apreel was all over the map, really dictating everything in the early, mid, and late game. And shout out him, he played so well.
Yeah, I think Apreel has really been the shining star of this Scarabs team. I would even say throughout this entire tournament, but
100%.
Yeah, for sure today, at the very least, the MVP for his team. And I think he's shown just enough diversity with the gods he's playing, with the style of picks that he's been going with, that he's not a player that you can just immediately ban out now. The Hunbats, the Mercury, Susano, those are obviously 3 of the big standout ones, but he's still got plenty more in the back pocket. So I think a lot of eyes are going to be on Apreel as soon as we start heading towards these SWC group stages. I think the SPL teams have a lot to keep track of with this Solar Scarabs roster.
And I think if a couple of those Mambo players didn't play as well as they did, I think I would be talking about Apreel in the best player in this tournament. I think that's how good he played. Unfortunately, Johnny also played phenomenal, and a couple other players in the Mambos also played phenomenal. But, I mean, looking across the board, Hunbots is supposed to be more of an engaged character and supposed to be more of a CC character. He did 25,000 damage. He out-damaged his mid lane Apwash on Hunbots.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty good from apreel, but I think pretty good might be an understatement for his performance and for really the comeback of the Solar Scarabs to get themselves a nice little start to kick our day off, and then now closing out the day with a 2-0 over the Niflheim Wargs. And again, your second team from the European SCC playoffs here to now make it to the SWC group stage. Again, happening in January, just that week before the actual SWC, the World Championships, kicks off, which means that we only have 2 more spots left for these amateur teams to come through. That's going to come from the North American rosters a little bit later. That'll be happening next weekend. But for this weekend, having now our final 2 teams who have made it to the group stage. We can look at the bracket for Group C to see the final journey for our squads. A 2-0 for Hex Mambo over the Solar Scarabs yesterday. Then puts Hex Mambo versus Niflheim Wargs today. 2-1 for the Mambo. Means that they get to be the first seed, qualifying out for Europe. And then with that Solar Scarabs loss, and then win over the Yomi Tanuki in their matchup today, a 2-0 for them. And then a 2-0 over the Niflheim Wargs means your Scarabs will be your number 2 seed. And if I'm not mistaken, this was the number 2 team, even just from the phase in general. Remember, it was that 3-way tie. It was like 3 teams that were all like right there with each other the entire way through. I think it was the Tanuki, Scarabs, and Wargs all at like 3 and 2. Just kind of the head-to-head kind of made the difference between those ones. So maybe the only reason Solar Scarabs wouldn't be at that second seed, but looking like one of the stronger teams out there. But that's all that we have for the EU SCC playoffs. But we still have the North American playoffs. That's going to be kicking off on Thursday, 11 a.m., same time, same place for 4 more days and 8 more teams to figure out what our 2 final teams will be for the SWC group stage. Thank you so much for watching. On behalf of myself, Inbound, all the other cast, and everyone behind the scenes, thanks for watching. We'll see you Thursday.